Morning, I just saw the popular party from the internet. A friend of mine in Facebook. They
Pavlova party.
yeah, Pavlova, Polva. Is this
Pavlova, yeah, we say Pavlova because it's named after a Russian ballerina who came to visit Australia in the late 1800s, and so the chefs at her special hotel cooked her this and named the dish after her. But normally we have it with passion fruit, mango, banana, kiwi fruit, like native Australian, not native, but tropical fruits we have with this dessert. And we eat this on the corner. That is rumbles. This is my favorite food in the world. And you can only have it on Christmas Day. And we eat cold meats and salads. But that's Christmas. But where I come from in Australia is the east coast of Australia, New South Wales. I studied in a city called Newcastle, but I lived in a small town 2 hours northwest of Newcastle. I grew up on a farm there, and I didn't move to the city until I was 21. But growing up in the countryside is quite different to growing up in the city because you don't have technology, you don't have traffic or transportation, you are isolated and you can only go as far as you can walk or as far as you can ride a horse. So my neighbours, they have kangaroos and emus as pets, and in our spare time for fun, because we didn't have arcades or places to hang out with other kids, we would go exploring in the forest, and we found some pretty beautiful places. I grew up with a brother and a sister. That's my sister with a dog. The dog's name is Roger. And he's an Australian breed of dog. He's a special breed to handle cattle. Cattle, like cows.
Handle.
And on our farm we have to use big machinery because we no longer use horses for
Every time we use buffalo.
Yeah. Yeah, we don't use cows or buffaloes, we use tractors because it's very modern now in Australia. But then when I moved to the city, life was very different. All of a sudden, I had the beach so close by. You can see where the city is right by the ocean and right by the river. And I lived close in this area here. So it was very
nice.
Yeah.
The ship.
And yeah, the big ships come in.
Oh, wow, beautiful.
And they collect coal because one of the biggest industries in Australia is coal mining.
Coal mining.
Coal?
Okay,
Yeah.
coal mining.
So we export that from a big coal terminal in our city. It's very ugly and very bad for the environment, but it's how Australia is such a rich country. And I learned how to surf when I was 18. So I think I'm 18 here. It's my surfboard.
Do you know how to ride a bike or ride a motorbike?
Yeah. Motorbike and bike, yes. Because on our farm we have motorbikes and bikes also. And a traditional way to entertain yourself is, this is called a bush dance. It's where people come together and play traditional folk music. And everyone brings food. Hundreds of families come, and they all bring different types of food, and they share, and we dance. There's a big dance floor, and we all dance together and share food and play music. And we do this maybe once every 2 months. And it's a nice way for people in the countryside to connect, because it's so far from any of your neighbours, it's so far from the town. You want to come together and talk and see each other's families and friends. So this is one event that we have to have fun and connect in Australia. We also, like I said, we're in the countryside, so we to have fun, we use nature. We would go rock climbing or abseiling. We'd swim in the lakes and the river. We go kayaking and hiking because it's so close to where we live. And nature and the natural environment is very important. But then if you're going to travel a long distance in Australia, you travel to Australia for the nature. You might travel to Europe for the architecture, to Asia for the culture and the food, but to Australia it's 100% for the nature because we have such a young culture, or young Western culture. We must find beauty in something, and that is the ancient landscapes. This rock formation is called Uluru. It's a sacred Aboriginal site in Australia, and these formations are called the Three Sisters, and they all have connection to Aboriginal religion. The Aboriginal people had one religion, and that was called the dream time. So when you go to sleep at night, you dream. Yeah. And their religion revolves around this idea of what is happening to the world while you're dreaming. For example, the Three Sisters, the story about the Three Sisters is that there was a monster came into a village of Aboriginal people. And these three women, instead of staying and helping the rest of the village to fight the monster, they ran away. And so the monster, seeing that they were immoral, they weren't doing the right thing, he turned them to stone. And these three sisters are standing side by side, cast in stone in history from when they tried to escape instead of helping their fellow tribesmen. When I moved, when you saw that beautiful picture of Newcastle, I didn't live in one of those beautiful houses on the beach. I lived in this shack. It used to be a house where the governor of Newcastle kept his dogs, and when he left the house, it went to ruin. So my friends bought this house, and they let me live for free in the dog house. So we tried to make the dog house more livable, more beautiful, and this is at the beginning when we first moved, before we made it more beautiful. But because our climate is so good, we just live outside on this veranda area. We can cook here, we cook on fire, we could sleep here on hot nights. We would have all of our friends come around to share food together. And then as the sun set, we would go swimming at the beach, which was 2 minutes walk away.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was very nice life. But so in Australia, we have a very iconic image when we think about architecture. We have traditional architecture, and these houses were built to deal with the hot climate because English people came to Australia and they wanted to keep their image of a house, but their image of a house doesn't partner very well with our hottest Australian climate. So they tried to make it more functional, more comfortable. They would have these big verandas at the front and high ceilings for all of the hot air to go up. But they aren't very practical. They're very dark inside and they're very cold in winter. But they're nice and cool in summer. But now modern Australian architecture really works closely with the environment. Australian architects like the idea of living outside, or there's being no barrier. So having houses that you can really change the doors, the walls, the ceiling to suit the weather that day. And so now a lot of architects are using a lot of these beautiful techniques to keep people in nature while they're living their everyday lives.
Like us.
Yeah, like you guys. I think this architect in particular, this one for this house, he lived in Thailand for 4 years. So he took a lot of inspiration from Southeastern Asian architecture. I personally, when I look at inspiration for artwork or architecture, I turn to nature.